Welcome to Brand Lover, honest, real and lively conversations for flourishing entrepreneurs and budding business owners on a mission to cultivate a heartfelt brand that connects with their purpose-driven mission. My hope is that you walk away feeling inspired and refreshed with a weekly takeaway in your back pocket that you can apply to your life or business. Welcome, Casey Patch, to the Brand Lover podcast. I'm so excited to have you as a guest because you are such an inspiration to not only your beautiful community, but also a lot of mums in business. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your time. I'm very excited to get into everything today.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So what I'd love you to do, because I know that a lot of my audience, like, on Instagram and in our communities and stuff, they know who you are because we've worked together before and we're all sort of part of the same circles, but a lot of people won't know who you are. So could you please introduce yourself, give us, the Casey story and your background, and also introduce your gorgeous brand.
So I am from Little Lifelong Learners, where I help parents of little people to inject more play into their days with their children. And I guess it all started years ago when I was a teacher in the classroom, and I actually lost my teaching contract when I fell pregnant with our oldest child, Lily. And so I'd left the classroom and I'd sort of started this teaching blog, and I'd uploaded a couple of printables to this website called Teachers Pay Teachers, and I was earning maybe $100 or $200 a month here and there. And I said to my husband, Curtis, I think I would like to give this a real go. I feel like I could earn a little bit of extra income here to sort of supplement the family income. And before I knew it, a couple of kids later, I was able to retire him from his painting job. And now we're both at home full-time with our little people. We've got our eldest is at school and our middle son, Elliot, is off to school next year. And then our youngest one, Audrey, is about to start kindy next year. So we have had the pleasure for the last 3 years of working together at home in our business and really being there for the kids while building this beautiful brand on the side. And it's sort of weaving into our family so beautifully. It's like a wonderful balance between work and family, and that nice blend that I guess everyone's trying to find the right balance between work and family. And it's a tricky one, but this year especially, we're just starting to get a bit more comfortable with blending the two together and not having them so separate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a real sticking point for a lot of people because, in traditional society, work is work and family is family, and they're to be separated.
Right.
So what you've done is you've integrated.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's so refreshing, like it's actually just writing your own story and it's working for you. And it's not just, like your focus is your family, and your business and your brand is actually feeding it. Do you know what I mean? Like it's fueling, I guess, your core family values, and that's, I love that. That's such a refreshing. It sort of got really deep really quickly there. But thank you so much for sharing that, like that initial story. But it's kind of like, so you decided to give it a go, like you started posting a few things on Teachers Pay Teachers, and then you sort of went, and then Curtis came home and now he's working in the business. And I would like to fill in the gaps for that. There's a fair bit of hard work that goes on in between that. It's not sort of like, tried to do this, let's just do this. And then, so let's sort of explore that, because I know that your audience now is mums or parents, but you started on this platform, Teachers Pay Teachers, which is quite well known in the teachers space, isn't it? Like that's a lot of resources there. And I know that you're sort of, were you one of the first, like were you an early adopter of that platform?
I think so. Like it's been around for quite a while, and I know my mum started on there before me. She is a teacher as well, and she had sort of read about this teacher on the website who was making millions of dollars a year from her teaching printables to support her husband. And my mum was really inspired by that. And she had this online store before I even did. And she said to me, like, have you looked on there? It's really cool. There's lots of wonderful resources on there as a teacher. And so I'd started this blog. I've always loved blogging. I had blogs even before I've had this teacher blog probably 8 years ago now. And
Wow.
it was a seamless sort of transition. It didn't feel really new or overwhelming. It was just a fun way to, I guess, connect with other teachers around the world. As a new teacher, especially, you don't really have a whole lot of support. And so I felt like I had this little community of people who were cheering me on as I stumbled through those first few years in the classroom. And so, yeah, I thought I've got a couple of printables I can just pop on there, and I'd make a few dollars here and there. And it was like a little bit of extra spending money for my classroom at that stage.
Okay, that's awesome. So then, so when you you never went back to the classroom after?
No, after I lost my contract, I had always planned to be at home with our kids. And I'd said to Curtis, like, from day dot, I want to be a stay-at-home mum. I love teaching and I'll be back in the classroom one day, or so I said at that stage. I don't know if that's really on the agenda anymore, but that was always the plan, that I'd stay at home and I'd be there for the kids. And I think I am such a teacher at heart that slowly over time, this little hobby sort of evolved into this real business that could sustain our whole family eventually. And there were so many different stages along the way, and times where I would go all in, and then times where I'd totally pull back. Like when we had our second baby, I took along like 4 or 5 months away from the business completely. And that was like a big milestone in the business. And when it sort of shifted from being all about teachers and me really discovering what my passion was and how I love to support parents in their role at home with their little people. And so really when he was born and I took a step back from what I had planned to do, and I just found this whole other area of my business that I just dove fully into and haven't turned back since then. I'd say that was like the turning point for the business.
Oh, so that's what I had been wondering, sort of how that shift occurred from, you know, creating resources for teachers to teaching parents about the benefits of play and how to play, you know, intentionally and set their kids up for independent play. You know, I know all this because we work together, but you know, like by actually taking that time and stepping away, you found the clarity. I love that, because so often in business we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to have that time. It's
like that breathing space. And I think it was forced time off. Like I wanted to really enjoy that newborn stage with him. And so like we'd set up a couple of systems so that it would maintain itself while I was away, but having that time away from the whole, okay, I'm going to work every Monday when Lily's at family daycare, I'd have that one day a week to get a couple of things done. And so taking that time to just be with Elliot, it really made me realize I'm really passionate about playing with our children and making those memories together. And so it really led me down that path of realizing that I didn't have to speak to all these different audiences. Like I was trying to juggle the teachers, the parents, the homeschoolers, and I was feeling really overwhelmed with my marketing, blogging, what products I was going to develop, because I was trying to talk to so many people. And it wasn't until I took that time away and just spent time as a family and really reassessed what our goals were as well, that I realized, okay, this is the audience that I'm going to focus on. And then when I was ready to step back into the business, I was totally all in, really more inspired than ever to get stuck into it and make it work.
Yeah, that's so exciting. So you had this sort of epiphany about getting clear on your audience. And I think because that's a huge mistake that a lot of business owners make, is that they're trying to appeal to so many people, or that a wide range of people are are attracted to them for whatever
Yeah.
reason and want different things for them. And so it's that whole sort of, I don't know, I see some people sort of going along the path of what does my audience want from me?
Yeah.
But really, you should, you know, if you flip that around, it really should be, what do I want to be known for, and who do I want to serve? Like, who's going to help me fulfill my purpose?
That's right.
And that can be really confusing and conflicting, especially because, you know, as entrepreneurs, it's especially heart-led, I guess, entrepreneurs, like, we want to help people, and it's really hard when you want to please everyone, but you really physically can't. It's actually damaging to your brand. So that sort of lit the way for you. So was that sort of when you really had a clear vision for what you wanted Little Lifelong Learners to be?
I think because I'd stepped away from the teaching, like we took paid maternity leave from the government when Elliot was born, and there were very clear rules about what you can do, what you can't do. So I stopped doing anything relating to teaching and printables, and I just started sharing the fun things I was doing with Lily and Elliot at home. And my Instagram account just exploded. Like, I think I started with maybe 2,000 followers, and then by the time the maternity leave ended, we were up to like 30,000 followers.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, so people, they love this. I love it. Like, why not just jump into it? And I still love helping teachers as well. Like, I still have tons of customers that are teachers in the classroom. They don't even have kids of their own. That I'm like, I can't wait to have children because you're making this look so fun.
So sweet.
And so it was a really natural progression. And I think because the pressure was off, it wasn't about income, it wasn't about how much money I could make, it was just about serving that beautiful audience that I'd created and having fun and enjoying that maternity leave with the kids. And it really like kick-started it, I think.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And so you know, so I guess that's when you started to think more intentionally about the potential of the brand and sort of what you could do and what you even really wanted to do. So when did the brand work come in? Because so, you know, like I know that you've done brand work because I did it with you, but sort of like, because I know that you did a little bit before we worked together, and I'd just love to explore that progression and how the clarity came about for you and what your journey looked like from the brand point of things, and that real intention, if you don't mind.
I think when I had Elliot, that was when I sort of started to see what I was doing as more than just a hobby. And so like we'd get this little bit of income from Teachers Pay Teachers, which would cover, like every now and then we'd use them for holidays and things like that. It'd cover the extra things that Curtis's income just would not cover. And so then we sort of spoke about like, we could earn a little bit more and I could not have to go back to the classroom after the kids go to school. Like I could earn enough to replace the teaching wage. That was the goal. And so I started investing in my own learning as well. That was a really big step for me because we always had that extra little bit of play income for all the fun things. And so to take that back away and invest it into this business that I was building was a really big kind of scary step, but it made it feel real. And Curtis has always been totally supportive of that. He always knew that it was something that I could do. He knew that I was goals driven and that if I wanted to do it, then I'd probably just do it anyway. So he was always fully behind me in doing that. And so I'd invest in little programs here and there to learn more about the business side of things, because like I had the play ideas down pat. I had what I wanted to teach people down pat, but the marketing was very new to me. Like I think most women who start businesses, we don't have degrees in marketing or business. We're coming into this led by our passions usually. So that was where I started to invest in learning about things like Pinterest and Instagram. And I did a little branding course many, many years ago when I decided to make it a business, but I was still very caught in that whole teaching audience and I was still trying to talk to both of them at that stage. So I hadn't really fully stepped into my vision as a whole. I was still stumbling through. And I think once we had Audrey, we had pretty much decided like, let's make this happen. Curtis took the paid maternity leave from the government. So he planned to take 2 weeks off and that was when Audrey was born, about 3 years ago now. And we sort of said, let's just test the waters. Let's see if the income is enough to sustain the family, because we knew he'd be able to go back to painting, or I could go back to teaching. And so we started with the 2 weeks, and then the 2 weeks crept by, and he said, all right, let's make it 3 months. So he told his boss, I'm going to take a little bit of extra time off, because this is really enjoyable for him as well to be there for the kids. And then stretched it out to the 5 months, and then like, okay, let's just do it. And we always knew that we'd be able to make it work. Like, he'd go back to painting, I'd go back to teaching, and at the end of the day, as long as we had the roof over our heads, that was the most important thing. All the other things were just extra. And so that was when I did my branding with you as well. We were like, okay, this is a thing, let's go all in. I knew that I wanted to stand out in my branding, because I'd always been a DIYer, and I can't even remember how I found you, but I remember seeing, I think it was on Instagram maybe, and I said, yeah, Rachel's the one for me. Just, I knew right away I wanted to have this beautiful brand that no one else could copy, that was all mine. And that was really when it all exploded, and we started our membership, and the rest is history, I guess.
Oh my gosh, there's so much I want to unpack in everything that you said. Because like, even just starting out with, like, you hit the nail on the head, is that when we start a business, like, we've got our own skill set and passion, and that's why we start the business. We don't start, but then all of a sudden there's all of these, so many different things. And especially like, and I'm going to sort of, I guess, point out the elephant in the room. I guess, I don't know if this is like politically incorrect, I don't know, but the whole thing about being a wife and a mother and taking income away from the family to invest in a business is scary.
It really is.
And it sort of, it really does trigger a lot of guilt. It did for me. Like, it was just like, it was kind of like, no, I can't, because you're in that motherhood identity mode, and you're like, well, hang on, no, because like, it's that whole selfless thing of like, you want the kids to have the best of everything, and you don't want to take family away, like money away from the income, especially because it's still a risk, like, every investment that you make is a risk, but at the same time, if you don't invest, then you don't see the return. So I love that you sort of explored that a little bit. I really wanted to highlight that, because I know there's probably going to be people listening who are at that stage right now that you and I have both been at. But to see the rewards, and so you mentioned that you did, like, you invested in a few different things. It wasn't like one big thing. And is that sort of how it worked for you? Like, it was just like, you started with one small thing and then you added another small thing. And
I think that's like something that a lot of people get stuck with as well. There's so much that you want to learn and do. And like, I am still that way. I work with a business coach one-on-one now, and she still gets a little bit cranky at me when I buy another course, because she's like, finish what you've got, Casey. And I get overwhelmed. Like, I see there's so many wonderful things that I want to learn. I'm a learner by heart, and I just love it. I love learning, because I don't like to waste time. Like, I know the time that I have without the kids is very precious work-wise, and I need to make the most of that time that I do have. And so I don't want to be reading a million blogs, and this person says to do Instagram this way, and this person says do it this way, and there's so much information out there. So I would rather spend a couple of $100s on a course and just learn from that one person who knows what they're talking about, and try and block out the rest, because otherwise I feel like, there's so much information out there, and everyone has different opinions about what's the best way to do things. And so for me, from the beginning, I've always said to Curtis, like, I just want to learn it from one person and do the thing, rather than get too distracted along the way, if that makes sense. And so I started with Pinterest, because that was a platform that I was already doing pretty well on my own with, but I knew there was so much more potential there if I could just learn how to do it properly instead of winging it. So that's always what I've done, is what is the next big rock, I guess, that I want to focus on, work that out, and then move on to the next thing as best as I can, because let's face it, I still get very easily distracted, but
shiny object.
That's it.
And I think that's so wise to approach it that way, in that sort of really honing in on what's important right now, what's going to have the most impact growth wise right now. Focus on that. And I think that's something really important to highlight too, is that I've learned as well, is that to invest however much dollars it is and time, and I'm the same, like any time that's away from my family, it's got to mean something, like it's got to be important. And it's got to be meaningful and have a really good reason, I guess, for taking away from that. So I'm totally with you there, but also now I've just totally forgotten my train of thought. So the time thing. So actually what you're doing by investing in an expert who actually knows what, like, that's their passion and purpose and why they're put on this earth, or, created their business, you are actually saving yourself time.
That's right.
In the long run. And, like if you're anything like Casey and I, then, and you are a stay-at-home mum / entrepreneur, because I identify as both. Weird. Then you'll understand that. And that's, I think it's really just, I don't know about your experience, Casey, but for me, like, to actually just to take that first scary step of investing. And once you do see the return, you see the growth and you see the development, it makes it more comfortable the next time you invest. So it's
that's right. And I think, like, once you invest money, even if it's $30, you know how you get targeted with all the mini offers on Facebook all the time, even if it is just $30, having invested your money and your time into it, you're going to make it work. Whereas if you're just picking up little bits and pieces from everywhere, your heart's not really in it completely, and you start things and don't finish things. And I think once you invest, even if it's just that tiny amount of money, it sort of switches something in your brain. You're like, well, I don't want to waste that money I just spent, so I better do the work.
Absolutely. You back yourself. It's just, you're right. It's almost like a mindset thing. You're better off paying for something, even if something's on offer for free, you're actually better off paying for it, because then you're invested and you have got no choice but to spend the time on it. Do you agree?
I agree completely.
Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it, the way that our brains work like that. Okay, so I'm so glad we were able to chat about that. But also then you mentioned the Little Play Club. So your main brand is Little Lifelong Learners. That's the mama brand, like the big overarching brand. And that's sort of where we started. That's where we worked through your brand strategy and we translated it and we made it distinctive, stood out from your competitors, because we could talk about that. We could talk about differentiation, because like we were having a look, I remember looking at the Pay Teachers site for the very first time. I've since worked with a couple of other brands who started there, but everything looks the same. Like everyone's looking the same. You can't actually tell that everyone's using the same fonts.
It's very, very hard to stand out there.
Yeah. So that was part of your reasoning for the rebrand and working with somebody like me, was so that you could actually stand out there as well, because you still got your products there, but also, I guess, positioning your brand in a different light to those, so that you are perceived as, up here rather than, in the messy middle.
And I think it's something I really struggled with as well, because I was so used to using these specific fonts for my cover. And you probably remember, like, I was redesigning my cover pages after we did our branding, and I was still going back to those fonts that everyone was using. And I remember you saying, like, it's okay. You don't have to use those fonts anymore. This is what we've got for you, and you will stand out by doing that. And I remember being so hesitant and thinking, oh no, I can't possibly stand out like that. But then once I did, even though my brand was already starting to be well known within that area, it was amazing how quickly it grew after investing in that branding, because I was able to fully step into my business and what I was building and that beautiful audience, unpacking that with you to work out where I had started and where I was going. And even now, I still refer back to those notes. I had them scanned into the computer to send to you. And I even looked at them, I think 2 weeks ago. I was doing some copywriting work and I went back and I said, oh, look, I'm still in alignment with what we spoke about all those years ago. And
Yes.
yeah, it was a really wonderful experience to be able to do that and really take that step forwards instead of blending in with everyone and really like announcing I'm here and this is my business and this is what I'm all about.
Yes. Yes. I love that. Sort of just planting your feet on the ground.
Yeah.
Knowing what you want to be known for and being confident in the fact that you can deliver what you're promising to people, and you do it so beautifully. So I don't think, like, how long was it after you got to that point where you had sort of elevated your brand and you were ready and you felt that clarity and that confidence? You're like, let's do this. And then the little play club was born.
I don't think it was that much longer after, because I think I remember going camping when you delivered my suite of goodies. And I remember saying to Curtis, like, this is so awful having to go camping and not being able to play with this. And so I remember that Audrey was about 4 months old. So I know that much. And then we started the little play club when she was about 6 months old. So it was really very soon after that we'd started this beautiful membership as well. And I sort of DIY'd that initially because I was so worried that it wouldn't be successful. But then like we did our first launch and it was incredible. I think we welcomed maybe 200 parents into the community straight away. And so I said to Curtis, like, I need to get Rachel to do my logo because this is not my thing.
So yeah, I was so excited for you and I loved doing that for you. Like, so yeah, so then we created like a sub brand as a little play club. So that's, and now you've just like, you've never looked back after that. Would you say that's now your core offering?
I think so. That is the goal, is to make it be the core offering. But then at the same time, like having a membership, I don't know about you, but every time someone leaves, I take it to heart. And I know I shouldn't, because I know it's just part of having a membership. And I know financially for a lot of families, it's really hard to have those ongoing costs as well. So I'm really mindful of that. But my heart just breaks a little bit every time and it's really hard for me. So I try to focus on the ones that are there and the ones that are staying and the beautiful community that we have. And so I'm just over the last few months trying to work out where the little play club is sitting amongst the rest of our business as well, because I do love the freedom of the digital products that we sell in the store as well. And like being able to go away and enjoy time with the family, that's something we find really hard with the membership, is the ongoing nature of it. And like, it's so lovely being in there and seeing the wonderful things that the families are doing together. And like, we're running a challenge at the moment, and every day when I go in there, like, it's just incredible to see what these families are doing with their kids amongst this pandemic that we're living in right now. And so the little play club is where I spend the most of my time, definitely within the business, is creating resources for those families.
It's always just finding that balance again, isn't it? Finding what works for you, that's also going to serve your audience in the possible way. I think that's like such a balancing act, because we can get so caught up in serving. We've got to be like, especially if you're a natural people pleaser. And then you sort of like forget why you even started your business in the first place. Well, I get to be like that too, and then I have to pull back a little bit, and then I realize that I've got like a little bit of a backlog, and I like pull back. I'm sort of like,
it's that constant juggling act, isn't it?
I mean, I thankfully feel like I'm at a point now where I'm okay. I'm doing like, I feel like I'm on top of everything. Like all of our kids are at school now. I think that makes a huge difference. But like you, like we had all of our girls at home when I first started this iteration of my business. So I can totally relate to that. And so what I would love to know is if there's any like real lessons like that you wish that you could go back and tell like young Casey in like when she first started.
I think definitely the branding is a big one. Like I DIY'd it from the very start, and I guess like I was scared of investing any money into this kind of hobby at that stage. And I think that's how a lot of women especially start their businesses. It's a very hobby thing at the start, and I think it's something we do to protect ourselves, maybe because we don't want to be a failure and we don't want people to see us as investing our precious family time. Like, we're mothers, we should be spending all our time with our children as well. And I think you sort of protect yourself in saying, this is my hobby. You don't even call it a business in the early days. And so it becomes really scary to invest in yourself in those early days, I think. And that would be the big thing for me, would be telling myself not to be scared of that. And if it's something you really want to do, you'll make it work. Like, it'll happen. If you've got that drive to make your business work, then it will happen. And sometimes it'll take a little longer. Like, for me, I like to have money generated in the business before I spend now. Like, I don't take money from our family anymore. What is in the business account has to cover the business stuff. And it's taken a long time to get to that point. And I think in the early days, I was very scared of doing that. So that's probably like the big thing for me, would be to try not to be so scared to spend that little bit of money to get things off the ground initially, because I think, as we spoke about earlier, it feels so risky in those early days.
Yes. And you're totally right in that. But when you do invest, especially in things like branding, especially because what branding is perceived to be like a logo and the pretty things, and the end point of the process, and to be seen investing in things like that seems a little like superficial almost. Like, like I feel like in the early days, to have professional branding, like you hear that a lot. It's like, I'm not ready for that, or like I'm too cool to consider that. But really, it's so interesting. Like, once you've actually come from it from the other side, how
so much clarity. Like, you get so much clarity from it. And I think my business was probably 5 years old maybe when I did my branding with you, and that was 3 years ago, and I'm still finding things now that I'm like, oh my God, why is that still looking that way, or why have I said that way? And so it's been this very big process going back as an established brand to update everything and get it looking how I want it to look, to give the impression that I want to give, and to say things the way I want to say. And it is always evolving. Like, I feel like as your business grows, little bits and pieces change along the way. But
100%.
Definitely waiting until the 5-year mark. I should have done it much earlier.
Isn't hindsight amazing? But you're like, it's so just coming back to that, what would you tell your former self? I love that, like, because it's the whole fear of judgment that's keeping us stuck, or keeping us talking about our businesses like they're just a hobby, or just I'm just doing this while the kids go to sleep, or I just earned a little bit of like pocket money or whatever. Like, that's actually they're the things that are keeping you stuck. You know what I mean? Like, really. And it's funny because I don't know, and I'm talking about branding because we're on the Brand Level podcast, and that's what I do from this perspective, like, just say investing in that, like, actually by presenting a professional image, you're actually going to like decrease the risk of judgment, and people will actually treat you or treat your business as more legitimate and be more respectful. Do you know what I mean? Like, they won't actually judge you in that way. It's sort of like the complete opposite. Do you know what I mean? But I think that that's something that's incredibly relatable. And so let's just say for the woman who's sitting at home, she's surrounded by toys and clutter, she's got like an idea and a vision in her heart, and she's got all those thoughts going on, or she's thinking, wouldn't it be nice to not have to go back to work or whatever? What would you tell her?
Just do it. Do it. Because I feel like I see business opportunities everywhere I go now. And I think because I am so passionate about my business and supporting these beautiful families, when I talk to friends and see them starting businesses as well, like, it's just so exciting to see all of these women starting businesses, especially, and not feeling like they've got to just be mum, that they are so much more than just mum. And being a mum is the most wonderful thing in the world. But I know for me, I love having this part of me that is all mine, and I don't have to always be the one that does all the housework. Like, we are such a great partnership, Curtis and I, that we can pick up the slack for the other person on the days that they're doing work or that they're the parent. And like, we often have a parent at the home and someone that's working, and we switch between those roles as we need to. And I think, yeah, if you are someone that feels like you've got this idea that you want to make happen and you're not sure whether it's going to work, like, just jump into it and try, because there is so much space for everyone, and you will draw in the right people for you, even though there will be so much competition around you. I'm guessing there's probably not many businesses that haven't already been started, but you have your own unique thing to bring to the world, and it's so worth jumping in and doing that. Flexibility to be with your family as well, while supporting your family, or eventually being the financial support for your family as well. It's pretty incredible, I think.
Yeah. And you're so, I find you so gracious in that whole thing, you know, like a lot of people, you can watching on YouTube, you can just see my dog on there.
I'm going to jump into this.
Just like anyway, that's a bit awkward. Yeah, so now I've forgotten where I was again. I don't know. Anyway, what I was wanting to say was that I love that, you know, you can be a mum, a dedicated mum, a stay-at-home mum, a mum that's always there for your kids.
That's right.
And you can follow your career and your passion and create a business that supports the family in that way, so that you can show up as a mum in that way. Like, it flows and it works. It's like,
it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like,
no, that's exactly right.
Together. And I think it ebbs and flows as well. Like, when, for example, we're doing a launch, that requires so much of me at my computer or on my phone constantly. But then the next week it'll be totally flipped and I'm all in with the kids. And I think it took a long time for me to be okay with that as well, because I had this image in my head of the mum that I was going to be and the mum that I am now. And there are parts that are still very much the same and parts that are a little bit different. But just knowing that this business that I've created allows us to both be present with the kids is so very special. Like, and that's something we definitely don't take for granted. I know when Curtis first left his job, there was probably a little bit of judgment about that, maybe being a dad that was going to be fully at home present with the kids, and a lot of jokes about, well, how are you going to escape now and things like that. But really it's such a beautiful thing for him, especially, to be there for all the kindy drop-offs. And like, that's something that he totally owns. He does the lunch boxes in the morning and does the kindy school drop-off, and then I'll usually do the pickups and taking turns like that. But it is very special to have that, that's for sure.
Yeah, such a blessing, and I guess one that you've created the space for.
Yeah,
you know? Like, you've sort of allowed that to happen by opening that door and seeing what it could be.
That's right.
And now, you know, because you were brave and you took that step together, now you're able to I guess reap the benefits of that. And it's such a beautiful thing to witness, like, because I've sort of known you since, so I guess we sort of knew each other before we worked together a little bit. Like, I'd sort of been watching your story a little bit and I found it so inspiring even then. And then I got to have the pleasure of working with you, and, you know, now you're like a beautiful member of my membership. And anyway, it's for me, it's a privilege to know you and a privilege to have witnessed this incredible journey. And I'm very excited to see, you know, what's next, like how you progress further. And I'll be here cheering you on. I'm sure
thank you.
Many others will be as well. So if people don't know you, where can they find you?
They can find me at littlelifelonglearners.com is my website, and then you'll find me on Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, all at Little Lifelong Learners as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Casey. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, see ya. If you loved listening to this week's episode, pretty please click subscribe so that you don't miss any future podcasts. Also, if you have just a minute, please feel free to leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening. I'd so appreciate it, and it will help spread this message further. Thanks for being here. I'll catch you next week.